we have taken the last boat rides we should ever take. And like he said, it's very serious. One thing I want to do with a bit of hope, since we understand this, is a bit of hope. We got a group of African brothers that is scaring the hell out the white man by the name of the Dogon Tribe in what we call the French Sudan, or what we call Mali in West Africa. And this Dogon Tribe is fascinating because they live every day of their lives to bring on this event. Every day of their lives. They don't live 1 minute outside of doing what they're supposed to do. Unlike most people, we do have some brothers and sisters on the continent, and we have a small group of brothers and sisters here, whether you be one or whether you be 50, that are dedicated to the preservation of the liberation. No, by any means necessary, and no compromise. Wow. This Dogon group of brothers are descendants of the ancient Egyptians or the ancient Hemmites. And this Dogon group of people, I think it's about, what, about 4,000?
It's about 10,000.
About 10,000, okay. About 10,000 of these brothers and sisters that have no type of love for any type of Western civilization or any type of modernization in the realms of what the white man calls his materialism. These brothers and sisters, when the Arabs invaded in, let's say a little after the 6th century, invaded and swept Africa, these brothers and sisters say that we would rather move and go underground just to preserve this knowledge. Also, these people said that what we would do, being the brilliant people that Africans are, they said, well, we would just go savage or make them think that we savage, so when the Arabs come up on them, they go, hey, they don't have a doggone thing that we want, and they'll leave them alone. And as a result, they was able to preserve this knowledge for at least 700 or 800 years. And this knowledge on about the Dogon is the most scientific knowledge, so scientific until the European astronomers and the European scientists say, you just did not doubt the Dogon. Everything they do is precise in the mathematics, in the science, and in the knowledge to this day. And to doubt them is to be a fool. But it's one thing about this. Let's go into the science. Number one, you have, let me spell it right, you have the star Sirius. The star Sirius. Now the star Sirius is the sun behind the sun. Mae Blavatsky, in her book Secret Doctrines, Volume 2, said if we're going to look for heaven, as well as what the Egyptians told them, or the Hemmites told them, if we're going to look for heaven, we would have to say that it would be the place that is almost 16 times greater than our sun. Our sun being how many times greater, we estimate, than the earth? 1,000,000 times greater. Now, I don't think it's that much. We burn up around here. Had to check that. Anyway, it's called the sun behind the sun. And also, by it becoming or being called the sun behind the sun, what it is that we have a sun. And our sun rotates around Sirius. It takes it 26,000 years to complete that orbit. Now, one thing about this Sirius was known in the ancient world as the great provider. What Sirius would do in the summer solstice months, it would come down, it would rise at the horizon, and it would flood the Nile Valley. The Nile Valley would vegetate Africa, which is the origin of, we would say, the origin of Western civilization as well as African civilization and the origin of agriculture. It would cultivate the Nile Valley, they would grow the food, and they would build a civilization based on the magnitude of what we would say the magnitude of vegetation, or we would say agriculture. So this is the great provider to earth. Now, one thing about the Dogon Tribe, they told the white boys, they say, listen, there's a smaller star, Sirius B. And Sirius B rotates or wobbles around Sirius A. One thing about Sirius B is no human eye can pick this thing up. The white boys had to later develop a telescope to find out about Sirius B. They say, well, wait a minute, how did this primitive tribe understand this type of information? Then they say, hey, we think some French travelers or some white boys gave it to them. You get Carl Sagan and his old fool behind it. Say that they gave it to him, saying that there's no way that this tribe, which is a derogatory term, could even have this type of information. But the fact of the matter is, when we see that vast land we call Hemmitt or Africa, Egypt as you know it, and we marvel at the greatness, you best believe when they went, they left custodians of the secret knowledge right there on the continent of Africa. Now the funny thing about this, it is not so much of the science. They say, okay, Africa has been baffling us for years with the greatness, but it's the mythology, it's the thing that hurts these white boys. And the mythology goes like this. You have in the book, The Pale Fox, I'm going to write this down. I'm going to write the name of the people. The Pale Fox, if you can get it, but I'll tell you another book that you can get that will go into this, because the white boys, when they printed this book in English for the first time in 1986, they said that one day this book will be, based on it was so, it took so much money to make because it has color pictures and graphs. They said that it might, based on the amount of money that people spend to buy the book, will determine whether we print this book later on. Well, we were ignorant at the time and we didn't buy it, and well, the white people bought it and all, but then again, they had known about it even when it was in French a couple of years before. So the book is now out of print, but I'll give you another source about the book. Now, going into this, the name of the people is Marcel Graou and Germain Dieterlen, the name of the French anthropologists that went in the 1930s. They went down and they studied these people for 16 years, and they only got to the lower part of what they call the heavens. But they gave them enough information, and they published this book, The Pale Fox. But it's the mythology that's scaring this white boy. Now let's get into this. Number one, we have the great god or goddess, Amma. I always say goddess because my goddess, or my God, is a feminine principle. Hey, your God might be masculine, that works for you fine. Mine is a feminine principle. The great god or goddess Amma created the worlds. In that, she created her first son after creating the universe. You see how this story transcends, and it sounds almost the same as the Bible, and we have these stories that almost are verbatim all around the world because we have 16 crucified saviors. And we have resurrections all over the earth. So don't just say that, hey, my God is the only one that resurrected, because you're sadly mistaken, because your God is a late God in history. And that fable that we go by called the Bible is late in history. As a matter of fact, we can say that that historical fable in the Bible, the Judeo-Christian religion, comes after half of human history was over. Three-fourths. Now you mean to tell me that we lived on the earth for three-fourths amount of time? And like Maulana Karenga said, and God didn't talk to us. He gonna wait till he get to a nomadic group of people that got kicked out of Hemmitt, our own brothers and sisters, to give us a scripture to talk to us. God didn't talk to us for that other point in time, and we know now that it goes back millions of years. When we go back to Lemuria, and Atlantis is really a code word for the black man's home all over the globe, more than some place that's sunk in the bottom of the ocean. That's right. Well, you understand what I'm saying? But going back to this fable, we have Amma who creates the world. Then she creates the first son, Ogu. Same fable as I told you last week about the great mother Tyre, and create the first son, Sut, or Set Typhon. Amma creates the world, and she creates her first son, Ogu. But she said, listen, you are half a person. Listen up close. She said, I now have to create your spiritual side. So I'm going to create you another brother. Then I'm going to create two female halves. Man is not man, not unless man is half woman. Woman is not woman, not unless woman is half man. Duality. I'm going to create your second female side out of these two twins. That is your spiritual side. Ogu got a little impatient, a little anxious. And he couldn't wait around until she created the brother and created the two twins. So he leaped forth. Now this leap forth is nothing but a scientific term housed in mythology to talk about a genetic mutation. You understand? So he leaped forth into the universe, and his name is the pale fox. Pale meaning what? White. Fox meaning this slick, sly devil. You understand? So we're not just talking about a black man up here talking about the white man. We're actually talking about what our brothers and sisters have said in the mythology, coming all the way from Hemmitt. This is an ancient science that we could not figure out in Hemmitt because Hemmitt is in fragments that we got right here with our brothers and sisters on the land today. Now, he's named the pale fox, and his name is Ogu. So she said, okay, cool. She said, well, you won't be able to create. Now, this leaping forth is called the vomit. In Egypt, Hemmitt is called the vomit, meaning a half a man, a mutation, only the vomit. We got into that last week. Anyway, she said you will not be able to create another life. In this mythology, he got into her womb and walked the universe until he found out the secret to create. You understand? He can create. She said, cool, but you won't be able to create one like me, the great mother, the great universe, the blackness, triple darkness of space. The microcosm of that would be what? The black man or the black man and the black woman or the black woman and the black man. That means he can only create the white man. In scientific terms, he can only reincarnate into the same beast that he always was. Now, she was going to destroy all of him and his whole creation because his placenta or his world was called the earth, which is a physical matter on the third dimension. Remember he was talking about these dimensions and these vibrations? We'll get into the dimensions, which is the physical matter. But she said, okay, I'll tell you what I'll do. Instead of destroying the earth, now doesn't this sound interesting? I will create your other brother whose name Nomo. Nomo. And balance him with his physical half, and he will be sacrificed for you. Same kind of stories we see. The sacrifice, you know what I'm saying? You know, Jesus, he died for the world, and he died for all our sins. You understand? But in this story, we got the white boy up in here. So now we know that what's getting ready to go on is not so much of you going to hell, but that white boy going to hell. And we're going to kick his ass and give him some hell also. Now, so Nomo sacrificing is the same sacrificing as Jesus Christ, because Nomo is in the sign of a fish. This is his sign, which is what? Pisces. Remember, Jesus is in the sign of what? The fish. Now you see how these stories travel all over the world. Like I said, there's 16 crucified saviors, 17 with Nomo being sacrificed, and more than that. Now, there's only one thing about this. Ogu supposedly have an ark, but his ark is inferior. You know, like that airplane and you know, that stealth bomber and that little what you call that thing they send up in orbit? The space shuttle, that little thing, they got a little glider and all this type of stuff. It's inferior. But Nomo has an ark also, and his ark is superior. Now I want to find this ark because I like to show this picture because it's 700 years old. 700 to 800 years old, probably older than that. This is what they can trace it back to. Now what does that look like? Looks like a spaceship. But hey, wait a minute now, that's a thing of the future. So what in the devil is a spaceship being in the Dogon's mythology 700 to 800 years old, or to say 1,000, because we know we can trace this all the way back to Hemmitt. What is it doing in there? And it says that one day Nomo will come back and subdue evil brother, Ogu. Now in this Dogon mythology, as well as the ancient Egyptian or ancient Hemmitt mythology, we have the Sirius cycle. This cycle coming every 26,000 years. Well, most of the scholars made a little mistake. They started calculating this cycle around the time of Kemet. They would say about 10,000 years ago. But what they didn't realize is Kemet borrowed this cycle, and this cycle was way older than even Kemet, and this cycle goes back to Atlantis and Lemuria, not meaning a place that sunk under the ocean. It means the black land and the black earth are nothing but black people own it before we sunk into the third dimension, the physical realm. The sinking of Atlantis is the sinking of the third dimension. I'll explain what this third dimension is. But anyway, this cycle that supposedly we say will take another couple of thousand years to come around, if we take it all the way back to Atlantis and Lemuria, where it's supposed to be, that means it's only going to touch down one time, and that is in 2000. We can basically say May 5th, or around May area of the year 2000. And supposedly this time, the Dogon, what you say?
That's round freak.
Round freak day time, huh? Right. May 5th, around 2000. So that means we got some serious times. We got some serious things to do. Because the reason why we don't take this liberation serious is for one reason. The reason why we don't take this liberation serious is because we don't think it will happen in our own lifetime. But it seems to me that's right around the same time that you'll be becoming your so-called black professionals. And you got to deal with this. And what you have to deal with is the so-called prophecies of all biblical scripture, Quranic scriptures, Toranic scriptures, or whatever, coming right in the time of you. Brothers and sisters, you are the ones that's going to take us into the New World Order. Or we might well say we are the ones, because I plan to be here and all. But anyway, we're going to see it in our lifetime, not some other time. So now we got a serious problem that we must understand, and that serious problem is you don't have time to play. It's very serious. But also the white man understands this too, and he's going to plan on doing something about it very soon. Like I told you, if you don't know what the King Alfred plan is, or putting black people into concentration camps, and I told you I got a psychic sister, and I asked her when was the King Alfred plan would be taken out, and not telling her what it was. You see, I just told her what, and she wrote it down because she writes through a psychic power. Said 1995. My calculations exact. The white boy is going to move on us. So going back to this scripture and going back to this actual time, we have that time in the 2000 that this 26,000 year cycle will be up. You understand? Everybody with me? Now, leaving the Dogon because we want to go into some other UFO phenomena. The messenger, Honorable Elijah Muhammad, told you about a big ship called the Mothership, or the Mother Plane, if you get his book, The Fall of America, whole chapter on the Mother Plane, as well as the book, A Message to the Black Man. We all laughed at that. And the point was, he said that this Mother Plane was a huge plane, a half a mile by half a mile. Well, the white boys say now that this thing is big as a city, as big as a whole city. We could say at least 14 miles long, a whole city. And he said that this Mother Plane would be the plane that would actually destroy the Western civilization as we know it today. Well, supposedly, he went to jail in the 1930s for protesting against the draft. See, the brother back then was on it then telling you didn't need to fight. So protesting against the draft, he went to jail. And in this jail, the white boys confiscated some blueprints and also some pictures out of his briefcase of the Mother Plane. He only ended up with a couple of pictures of the smaller planes that his son Rasul Muhammad saw when he was a little boy. But anyway, he confiscated this, and they tell this story to the brothers and sisters in the nation to this day. Well, it's only one thing about it. That still sounds like some sound like some spooked up stuff. But if we could just document this, we would be on our way. Well, it's funny. If you get the book Neil Wilgus, Illuminatus, by Neil Wilgus, introduction by Robert Anton Wilson. In this book, it tells you in around 1951, was it 51? 1950, because he got out of prison in 51. In 1950, in prison, in the book, now these are white boys talking about this. In 1950, they said that some people called the MIB visited Malcolm X in prison. Now, what is the MIB? The MIB is supposed to be a group of UFO people put out by the government. Some people saying they're all from this spacecraft and all this stuff. But it was a group of people put out by the government that used to come in, and when you would see certain sightings and start going crazy, they would come in and shut you up, tell you they're going to kill you, your family, and everybody in it, and you would shut up. And this is how they kept this stuff secret up until a few years ago. Well, this MIB visited Malcolm in prison in 1951. You see? Now, they didn't visit him. This is a people that's supposed to be shutting people up about UFOs. Remember, at this time, Malcolm was firmly in the Nation of Islam. And the knowledge of the Mothership was told in the Nation of Islam. So what that means? That means that they knew about the Mothership, documented, and they went to find out some information about this Mothership in prison system. Nobody else saw it. You couldn't see no Mothership in prison. They went to find out about this Mothership in the prison system. Now, to document some more, because I want to drive this stuff home. To document some more, brother by the name of Zachariah Stitchin. In 1978, the white boys at NASA built a wheel. This is how the wheel looked, and I'm going to get the page and I want to show you this wheel. I want to pass this around. They invented this wheel. And they said this wheel is ideal for futuristic space travel. It's called a flywheel, and it can do certain things without burning so much fuel. Well, it's funny. The German Egyptologist said, well, it's funny you said that because we got the same wheel in a museum in Germany that we got out of Hemmitt all the way back from the 3rd dynasty. The same wheel that we got out of Hemmitt. And this is a picture of the wheel. I want you to pass this around. Anyway, supposedly with this so-called wheel, with the knowledge of this, coming out of Zachariah Stitchin's book. This is a bigger book. You can get it now for $14.95, called Stairway to Heaven. It's supposed to have been a ship that the god Ra came down in. Now, we know that the gods that they're talking about are nothing but our own ancestors. And this ship is a ship that the god Ra came into the atmosphere in, and the people witnessed this, and the people would make a pilgrimage just as the same as you would make a pilgrimage, the Muslims would make a pilgrimage to Mecca. They would make a pilgrimage to see this certain ship. In the first intermediate period in Kemet, where the kingship kind of got out of hand and stuff started falling out and they started having these wars, the ship was supposedly dismantled and taken to all parts of the earth. Well, basically, or stolen, or the entire ship was stolen. But we find the same pilgrimage to Mecca verbatim through this so-called pilgrimage that was in Kemet. And now we understand that there are secret things under the Kaaba in Mecca, which is the black box. If you ever saw the pilgrimage, there are certain secret chambers under there, and there's been reports that maybe this ship is also under there. And this is how we get this same lineage that the black Arabs, the Cushite Arabs, would later on know about this pilgrimage that would even teach Muhammad. We talk about the brother Bilal from Ethiopia, and Zayd bin Harith, and all of these would later on teach Muhammad. Right there. Now, let's go on to a little more about this. There's a group of people that supposedly, in this New World Order, there are some people that have been getting some signals from Kemet, or getting some signals from outer space, from black people out of space, since the early 1960s. And what happened was, we found out that the people knew that we were shut down as a people, and they knew that they would not be able to get this information to our people if they started channeling us. But what happened was they started giving these messages through the white people, telling the white people, but hey, we white. We are white people up here. Telling these white people this so these white people could actually take this information and give it to all the people, or print it up in books. But they knew that they would have the means and the money and all of this to get this stuff out. And they're really writing this stuff for us. They're really writing this stuff for us. So they've been channeling these people for all these years and been fooling these people. They're actually black people. You see? Now, in this part, they talk about these people in this channeling, they're giving you code words. And these code words are, they say that number one, they say that in the year 2000, the Christ figure will come back. But when they talk about Christ, they understood that there was a historical Christ that was this guy that traveled around named Jeshua ben Pandera. Jeshua meaning Jesus, Ben meaning son of, and Pandera is actually the panther skins that the priesthood that he belonged to in Hemmitt wore. That's the historical Jesus that you know of today. But Christ being an actual title means the anointed one. We have plenty Christ figures. Christ is a title. You have the means to be Christ yourself. So the white boys, in channeling this stuff, they say, listen, they say Christ is a title that people can rise to their higher part of spirituality. That's Christ. But they also say, check this out, they say also, Christ is a code word for a particular group of people or a particular race of people on the earth now. You Jesus Christ, black people. And the white people know this. That's right. You are Jesus Christ. Now, going back to what's going on in the 2000s is, because we're driving this home, and I want to give you a little bit of information. That's why I'm not really going into real, you know how I did last week and really got you pumped up, because I want you to understand about this fourth dimension. Now, supposedly, there was a time on earth when all black people that walked the earth had this Christ figure. Your pineal glands are the higher realm of what you can go into. The higher realm of Godhood was all open. This time was during the time of Atlantis and Lemuria, which actually means the black earth and all black people on it. What happened was, you have, my brother talked to you last week and talked to you a little bit today when he said the vibration is the first nature or the first law of man. What happened was, you were on a higher vibration. You were into what you call the fourth dimension. That is a higher vibratory rate. What happened with the sinking of so-called Atlantis was the vibratory rate sunk and you came into the third dimension of what we are in now for the last so many thousands of years. That's the physical realm. Now this third dimension is the physical realm and we sunk into it, and we are the black brothers and sisters that got caught into the third dimension. Now when you go to Hemmitt and you see all these gods and goddesses and all of this, they are actually telling their brothers and sisters that's in the fourth dimension to help us. So when you do these rituals and you pray to this God form, you're not praying to anybody but black people like you with open pineal glands in the fourth dimension. You are going back into the fourth dimension, and the fourth dimension will come upon you. It's gradually coming upon you now. It's been coming since the mid-60s. But it will be in place, the fourth dimension will be back in the year 2000. But raising the Christ mind, when they talk about the master plan, this city on wheels that Honorable Elijah Muhammad talked about, they say that it's invisible. But the reason why it's invisible is because it's in the fourth dimension. Now you understand, if you look at Star Trek, because the white boy always dropped his knowledge in his movies. You look at Star Trek and they say, beam me up, Scotty. They separate the molecules and they beam him up and he disappears into a certain channel until he comes on another realm. You understand how that goes? Well, what happens with these spaceships is the reason why you can't see it, black people, is because they are here now on Earth, but they're vibrating at a higher rate. But isn't it funny that how many of you have actually seen a spacecraft? That's what I thought. You saw one, right? God bless you, brother. That's good. A few brothers and sisters have. But most black people have never saw a spacecraft. But if you go to most white people, like I told you last week, most of them have seen them. I met a couple of white boys say, I don't know of too many people who haven't seen them. You see what I'm saying? I said, well, damn, I know a whole race of people in here. But the point was, yeah, I know a whole race. But what the point was, it's only appealing to those people. It's telling those people that their time is up. It's not going to appeal to us because they understand that we are going to go into the fourth dimension, and this pineal gland that we're talking about is going to open up anyway, because the fourth dimension has a higher vibratory rate, and it will automatically open up the pineal glands. The calculations is some of the pineal glands are opening up now. Some of them will be open in the year 2000, most of them, and the rest by 2013. That's your people that's on all the milk and the dairy products, and all of the liquor, and all of the pork, and all of the meat, and all of that bullshit. But the point is, these things will be opened up. Now, when we see about this fourth dimension, it's funny. Because if you noticed last week, Brother Wesley X said that this mothership is coming from right here on earth. There's plenty of motherships, maybe more, from other galaxies. But the one that we're concerned about is the one that Honorable Elijah Muhammad prophesied. He said it's coming from right here on earth. It was built here on earth, and it's coming from right here on earth. And it's right here on earth. But how is that? Why can't you see a 14-mile or half a mile by half a mile big ship? Because it's vibrating at a higher vibratory rate. Number one, there are cities that's right here on earth, mainly in your big deserts in Africa, the Sahara, and different deserts. There are cities right here on earth. When you go into the higher dimensions, these cities would automatically appear. But you can go right through these cities because vibration means you disappear, so a person can walk right through. It's like that ghost thing. Watch the movie Ghost again. But in that, we have these cities right here on earth. Well, it's only one thing about this whole UFO phenomenon, and that's this. All the white people are writing literature saying that it's going to help humanity. Well, hell, if it's going to help humanity, why would the government hide it for almost 40-something years? You see what I'm saying? Why wouldn't it give something that's going to be good for white people? Seems like everything else is good for white people. You know about it because they boast about it. But the point of the matter is that white people have what you call a bad karmic lesson. What that means in karma means the cause and effect. What you have done to people will come back to you. And this new age is going to deal, when we say the new age, we're talking about this 2000 and this vibratory rate and this great second coming that you are prophesied in your Bible is going to deal with the bad karmic lessons. We know that the white people has got the blood of millions and millions and billions of people on their backs, and they got to pay for that. Now I want to get into this heaven and hell thing right quick because I don't want to spook you out. But listen, we got this heaven and hell thing, and it says that you're gonna catch retribution for all you have done in your life. Well, let's just say if we're being judged by Jesus, God, Osiris, or whoever we're being judged by, we'll just say the black ancestors or the black gods or the people in the fourth dimension that's going to bring this great judgment. And I step up and they say, well, listen, you have done this and you have done this. I say, well, listen, I got a big excuse. I stand before you as an African. But what I did on earth, I was not an African. I was out of my mind. You understand? So I can't be judged and go to the same hell if I came into the earth as Johnny Brown. You see? In Overthought and James Culpepper. You understand? I can't be judged by the same thing. So therefore, the great judgment is not about black people. My God, how much more hell can you catch? You hell with a capital H right now. And even if you think you're in heaven, you are really in hell. So therefore, the judgment is not for you. In the book of Gates, which is the book of heaven and hell, we're talking about gates and different regions coming out of Kemet or coming out of ancient Egypt. In these books of Gates, which the Hebrews borrowed and stole this book of Gates, the heaven and hell concept, 100 years before the birth of Jesus Christ. They didn't even have one at first. They adopted this book of Gates. And they stole this book of Gates, which is the heaven and hell concept that you all spooked out about this doggone devil. That's why you can't really get into none of this, because you scared you go into hell. Well, the book of Gates, the real personification of this book of Gates is this. They never said that you would catch retribution. They say the people that would catch retribution are the enemies of Ra and Osiris. Ra being a blue-black god, and Osiris being a blue-black god. Who are the enemies of black people? In actuality, they're saying the enemies of black people. Who are your enemies? What is the opposite of black? So they're talking about white people. It's funny because we had me and Cohen had a lecture, we had an argument with a white boy that goes to ITC, cracker. We beat this cracker on the ground. We beat him in the ground for 3 hours. And the funny part about it was he bears witness. And I said, no, the retribution is you. I said, if you knew what's in that Bible, you would throw it down, because that means your ass with it, not ours. You understand? So we would need to be clear on this heaven and hell. And in this hell concept, or in this heaven concept, we understand that the people will come in a ship, or the boat of souls. See, the Dogon Tribe tells you that our people are on, there's another planet, and that planet is called, there's another planet, and that planet is called Sirius C. It's called a star of woman. So you know you're mistreating woman if you want to get to heaven. You need to cut that out. Anyway, it's called the star of woman. Now in this star of woman, they say that our ancestors are on this star. And it says that one day they will come down with Nomo. Nomo will come back with the ancestors of man and subdue evil Ogu. Now in this mother plane that this group, the Mark Age, which is a group that has been channeling these signals, they say, well, this mother plane has all of these prophets since the beginning of time, and all of these great ancestors who have gone on to a higher realm. That means you know spiritual people all your life. Maybe your grandmother, maybe your grandfather. All this is the boat of soul. And on this boat that is big as huge cities, that's big as huge cities, that has smaller boats and all of thousands of members. So the stuff that was prophesied by Honorable Elijah Muhammad, as well as the Dogon Tribe, is coming soon. Now, what does this mean? Does this mean you saying, well, since the mothership coming, I might as well go ahead and party? No, it doesn't mean that. Because what it means is this. Some of you brothers and sisters, between now and then, is going to be getting all kind of lessons. It's going to be some of you that's going to take heed to the lessons, and some of you just going to ignore it. But there's only one sad part about this is retribution going to come to all the Uncle Toms and all the sellouts. Well, they're going to get slayed. They need it. And they need it. And they need it. So the point I'm trying to say to you is, you got a serious time. You're at a serious point that you need to start. First, you need to learn your history. A people who don't know their history is lost forever. You can't know where you're going until you know where you've been. So you need to learn your history. If a person is historically illiterate coming in the new ages, he is out of it. So therefore, you need to learn your history. Number two, you need to practice good diet and good metaphysical science and raising yourself to a great godhood. That's lining up these 7 chakras and opening up this kundalini, in which Brother Cohen is going to drop on this kundalini. Now I want to read this actual, in the book Gerald Massey, Ancient Egypt, Light of the World, there's a papyrus in there, and in this papyrus it says, they're talking about a speaker. Now this speaker is actually on the ship. He's on the ship. And he's telling the captain or the commander of the ship, he said, oh, let me drive this ship. This is thousands and thousands of years old. He said, let me drive this ship. Let me drive this ship to the west, where my people who walk around with their head to the ground praying, who know no way of lifting themselves up. That's us. We're trying to find, well, how the hell are we getting out of this? And it's saying, let me drive the ship. Let me go forth to the west and tackle those oppressors. And then in the papyrus it says, oh yes, the people, the lost souls, who are the lost souls? You are lost, board the ship, and later was rescued. But before that point is a big void. And that point is, you have to be for liberation 100%. But see, the white man got a trick for you. His trick is, we're going to give a few of you Negroes what you want, mainly you. Give you your jobs, give you all the little finer things in life on this physical realm. And he's going to keep you preoccupied with all of this. It's mainly with sex, all of the great material wealth, and all of this to keep you to a point that you won't rise spiritually. The other point is, yes, he's going to do this to black people, and we're talking about you. Number one, you will represent the black middle class. All of the 80s, they have neutralized all of the underclass, and you've seen that all on the TVs, killing each other, just degradation, AIDS, crack, all of this, until the underclass is literally dead. The only thing left is, once you wipe out the underclass in a caste system, there's only another class that go, the upper-lower class. We known as the middle class. You're really upper-lower class because you're one paycheck away from poverty. But the point is this. On this system, that means the other one has to drop down, and that's you. It's funny because the sister said, well, I'm trying to understand this. She said, I'm getting in my readings that in about 2 years, the bottom going to drop out of this economy, and they're going to let go all the black middle class. They're going to take their jobs away from you. That's some of your mothers and your fathers. So this stuff is affecting you. Don't say, oh, you need to go and talk to the brothers and sisters in the projects because they're killing themselves. No. They're talking about you. They're going to take the jobs away from you. Why? Because they understand that if these black people are actually gods, that they are going to open up in a divine awakening soon. We must detain them and get rid of them before this divine awakening opens up. Now we understand they're not going to be victorious, but this is the sick mentality of the beast. You understand? So they're going to take the jobs away from you. And when they take these jobs away from you, remember now, you represent the voice of America. When the black middle class get upset, they start to marching and we shall overcome and all this here. And you start making all kinds of great frenzies. But when they take these jobs away from you, you're going to lose your mind. You understand? Saying after we have done all this, we've even sold out for you. White people. Psychotrauma. There's a book called Psychotrauma. And after we have done all this and we've even looked down on our brothers and sisters and made them the butt of the joke. Yeah, look at them gold teeth. You understand? Look at all them 4,000 earrings. Look at little mama and shorty pimp. Look at little Willie. After we have done all of this, you still put us out in the cold. And so you're going to start rioting, because remember they did a test drive of this test riot back at the LA riots, all set up by the government to see how you act. Because remember, the people were all in line. They had these little cars running around the AU Center, and those little cars was driven by officials of FEMA. FEMA is the Federal Emergency Act, which gives you all your blankets, all of your stuff when you have these hurricanes and these storms. But it's also the Federal Emergency Act is when black people get out of hand, that's a federal emergency. And they enact this King Alfred plan to put you in concentration camps. So FEMA, and if you notice this too, in that riot, martyr that you pay money to automatically came to a paramilitary vehicle system that transported the troops into the AU Center. If you went up on what's the Northside Drive, you'd have saw they had a whole group of martyr buses that got the troops here. That's all a part of the system. But anyway, in this system, you have FEMA and you have all of this. They know you're going to lose your mind. And when you lose your mind, because they started that riot before just to see how you would lose your minds, and you did a good job of it. Plus, half the white people burn up some buildings just to make it a riot, so you would say all this. But they understand one other thing. They're probably going to kill a world leader. I don't want to put no bad mouth on people, but it might be some of these Uncle Tom leaders that they put in the media. You see, they won't kill the black revolutionary freedom fighters like Farrakhan and all of them, because they know that you will really lose your mind and this country will go up in smoke. Because one thing, they know that there's a divine prophecy on him. Because remember, he had a vision and went to this mother wheel that Honorable Elijah Muhammad was in 1986. Believe it or let it alone, as he said. Right. So they know they don't want to mess with the divine prophecy, so they're going to kill one of these Uncle Tom leaders. Could be any of these niggas that they give you on TV all the time. And there's not going to be no... And there's not going to be no justification for it. So now you sitting home broke. Some of your leaders that you think that you admire, they're going to kill them. And the next thing you know, they're going to start this riot all over again. And then it's going to be lights out. And it's going to also be FEMA. It's going to enact the King Alfred plan. And Al Gore is over FEMA. Al Gore wrote a book. This is your vice president. Al Gore wrote a book. Some new book called A New World Order. I can't think of the name of the book. But in his book, he simply stated that, look, Africa, as far as we're concerned, is a lost continent. And what he's saying is, far as we're concerned, it's lost, and it's going to stay lost, and it's going to actually die. And the people over here also. So based on that, this King Alfred plan that Al Gore, the people that you all elected, I saw y'all running around with that little vote button on, to elect these people, are the people that's going to bring you into the New World Order. Number one, we understand that in 1990 in the Bilderberg group, they elected Bill Clinton to be the next president because they understood that people did not like Bush because he got the country in a mess of a jam, which he was only following orders. But they say, just in case, we're going to give you somebody that's the same. They're in the sister fraternities, Skull and Bones, and what's that, Scroll and Key. All the people are same. You get in that chair, you all working for the same people. And you voted him in. And if you notice, he has reneged on everything that he said he was going to do. He said no new taxes, and last week he said, I got to do it. And then I want to ask you a question. If this brother, I don't want to say brother, I'm used to saying brother in my speeches because that's a good habit, but if this cracker will let go thousands or let's say hundreds of his brothers and sisters in the Congress 2 weeks ago, what the hell he give a damn about you? Seems to me that don't sound like no good lesson for you getting any kind of wealth in the future. He is a part of the New World Order, and he's going to bring it in. That's his goal, to give you somebody that's pacified and look about like Kennedy. You know how it is, young, a loving, what you call an illusionary president that will bring in this New World Order and lock you down. So whether you believe it or let it alone, you'll be sitting here one day when the tanks start rolling in, and you will say, damn, somebody told me about that before. But the point of the matter is, I'm not going to be on that long ship hauling no Negroes to no doggone ovens. I'm not going to wait for the oven to close down on me. So with no further ado, we got work to do. We got this brother coming on. I didn't want to go into a long thing because we got this brother coming on, Brother Rodney Cohen. He's going to tell you a few things on the scientific part of the pineal gland, and I said you must open up. That's going to open up anyway, but remember, before you get to this point, they're going to try to kill you. So the more spiritual you are, the more untouched you are. You understand? So brothers and sisters, we're going to bring this brother on. He's going to tell you a couple of things that you need to do. Because remember, before that comes in, the mothership and all of that, he's coming for blood. You dead people. Some of you in here are actually dead. Hotep's brothers and sisters. Hotep.
We're going to try to move this along quickly so we can get into the question and answer period. Before I get started, I want to remind everybody that we have Black Media Communication and Production taping this along with Brother Ali Hemmitt, who is Bobby's brother, and his other brother here also. But you can pick up the tape at Black Media Communication, which is located at 2258 Cascade, which is next door to the beautiful restaurant. And he has a special going on for
students, 250.